Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday. I look forward to talking to Pierre LeBrun and Stu Cowan. Pierre LeBrun tweeted about Jacob Fowler a couple of days ago. What did he tweet? Well, if you missed it, he's going to tell you. A couple of Montreal Canadiens that made their way in the history books and even in the National Hockey League history books. For one, we'll talk about them. That trade that was supposed to go down for the Canadiens that didn't. Was it with the Leafs? Again, we hear Matthew Knies' name. Nick Kyprios weighed in. Darren Dreger weighed in. Chris Johnston weighed in. I'm going to ask Pierre LeBrun about it. Rako Gudas, knee on Austin Matthews. We'll discuss what happened there and the reaction or non-reaction. A player who got under the Oilers' skin last night from the Dallas Stars. Not talked about a lot in Montreal, but maybe we should. Because after all, he is from La Belle Province and a recurring theme for the Edmonton Oilers. With Stu Cowan, we'll talk about a lot of things, of course. The ménage à trois in goal for the Montreal Canadiens, yes or no? Gallagher to rest. It looks like Texier might be out tomorrow night. Marty St. Louis has admitted that the difficult decisions are on the horizon. We discuss all of that coming up in 3 short minutes right here on this Friday edition of the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
It's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now. Got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lanier, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. terminé pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday. I hope everyone is having a great Friday, and thank you for watching. In all transparency, this is not live at 10 p.m., and it was recorded before we got any word of a suspension for Ratko Gudas, who, of course, had a telephone hearing scheduled for today. Also, Austin Matthews was to go for an MRI. So during the recording, if anything comes up, I'll mention it. But if I don't mention it, keep in mind, obviously, that this was pre-recorded earlier in the day, and that's why I didn't get to it. Pierre LeBrun is brought to you by Cafe Milano. Sports commentary doesn't stop at the buzzer, neither does Cafe Milano, a true community cornerstone in St. Leonard with buzzing spots in Laval and Pointe Claire. They're serving up banger sandwiches, my personal favorite being the sausage sandwich with spicy marinated eggplants. I call them marination. Thank you. Marinaro, marination. Vibrant salads bursting with flavor and lattes and espresso that keep the energy high through overtime. Throw in a cannoli or two, and every bite is a highlight. Join the locals at Cafe Milano and turn every meal into a team win. Cafe Milano, because winning tastes better. They bring you Pierre LeBrun.
Pierre LeBrun, presented by Cafe Milano, because winning tastes better.
Pierre, how are you?
I want to know when the diaper sponsor comes out here, Tony. That's what I want to know about. There's money to be made here, buddy. I mean, you got to think even bigger. And you already think big.
I'm never going to be able to live this one down, I guess. Yeah, but for those who missed it and have no idea what Pierre's talking about, of course, last game after the game between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, I went on an extended version of the Habs post game on the Sick Podcast, and I prepared for it in advance and wore a diaper just in case I had to go to the bathroom but couldn't leave. So anyway,
if I had a hat, it would be off right now to you.
Thank you. I'm a very transparent guy, so I admitted that. But please, nobody ask me if I actually did my business in the diaper. I really don't want to answer that. All right, okay. Pierre, you know, it's funny. Sometimes you don't have to say a lot in the tweet, but you sent out a tweet the other night after the Canadiens beat the Ottawa Senators by a score of 3-2 on 32 stops on 34 shots by Jacob Fowler. Holy mama. Jacob Fowler sent at 10:18 Eastern the other night, 147,000 views. Holy mama is right. And it's funny because I don't remember when was the last time I had friends who all text me at the same time, like within 5 minutes after the game was over, like, holy Jesus, Fowler, holy mama, Fowler, oh my God, Fowler, oh my Lord, Fowler, I can't believe they found their next Carey Price, this, that, whatever. I'd like to say we're not going to get carried away, even though I did. And I also got carried away when he played his first NHL game, of course, in Pittsburgh versus the Penguins. But I'd love to get your thoughts before asking you about the performance, your thoughts on the recall.
Yeah, I thought it was a major moment in the Montreal Canadiens season because you can't, the Canadiens are like a lot of big franchises, but perhaps no one's like them, where they really try to manage the message. They have to. 2 official languages, big market, and they really try to control the story in their market. Sometimes you can't hide the story. And when they called him up and gave him the start that should have otherwise gone to Samuel Montembeault, actions speak louder than words. I mean, the Canadiens are telling the world we no longer have confidence in Samuel Montembeault, because that was a big game against a rival in Ottawa where if the Senators win in regulation, suddenly they're really in the race and Montreal's in a more precarious position. That was the biggest 2 points of the year, in my estimation, that the Montreal went into Ottawa and beat the Senators. So when the organization says we're calling up Jacob Fowler to take this back-to-back start with Dobis playing the night before against Toronto, that's a moment in the season. And I know that if the Canadiens are on with us right now, they would downplay that. I'm telling you, you can't downplay it. That was a major moment, which could have gone sideways. Instead, Jacob Fowler produced one of those moments we'll look back on if he has the kind of career that a lot of us think he's going to have. That was welcome to the big moment, Mr. Fowler. And Holy Mama is my trademark, as people know, once in a while on X. But it felt like a Holy Mama moment, so that's why I put it out there.
He produced the kind of performance that Gordon Hughes, St. Louis and company were crossing their fingers and hoped that he would, because it was such a big decision that could have backfired here in this city and in this market, like that it would have been ugly if the kid would have got shelled by 7 and the Canadiens lose a 4-point game versus Ottawa. It was a huge game because there were 7 points separating the two teams before the game. The Canadiens ended up going to 9 points instead of 5 points with an Ottawa win in regulation. It could have been 5, but instead it was 9. And I think Money Puck had the Canadiens' percentage of making the playoffs at something like 82% before the game, and then it went to 94 with that win. Crazy. And the Ottawa Senators went from like 56% to like 44%. And I could be off by a couple of percentage points here. I'm just trying to go by memory. But, Pierre, what you said, and you put it so eloquently, they say actions speak louder than words. The Canadiens didn't come out and tell you that Samuel Montembeault dropped the ball. They didn't have to. I mean, everybody knows that he has, and it's been a very difficult season for him. Actually, it started difficult in training camp, preseason, the entire season. Everyone's got a theory on it. I'd love to hear your theory as, from going from his best season in the National Hockey League when he started 62 games to this season. But before we get to that, they didn't want to comment when pressed on the situation. Marty St. Louis said, look, I'm not going to answer 40 questions about the goalie. We called up Fowler, and considering it's 2 games and 2 nights, we believe he gives us the best decision to win this game because of that context. But action speaks louder than words. They called him up. Everyone knew what they were thinking when they did so. So what happened, do you think? Pierre Maguire has a theory, and his theory is he believes that once Samuel Montembeault saw the Olympic dream slipping away, everything went downhill. I respect the opinion. There's probably some truth to it. Only Sam knows. I'm not so sure I share it because it was difficult for Sam as of preseason. Your thoughts?
I wondered if he prepared the same for this year, and I'm not trying to be critical, but it just always looked behind the 8 ball from the get-go for him this year. And, he did, he's got the commercials and he had some off-season fanfare, which he deserved after the last couple of years. It was a great story for the Montreal Canadiens. But I've seen this often with other athletes and certainly hockey players over the years where you get your first little taste of fame. Suddenly you got a sponsorship deal, you got this, you got that, and you take your eye off the ball a little. And that's what I'm seeing.
Wow,
in terms
interesting.
Of how this season came along for him. I just don't think he was as ready as he's been in the past. And listen, I know that he's really liked by his teammates, and there's nothing against Samuel Montembeault, but
great guy.
I have to be honest because that's my job. Even when he was doing his best and he made Team Canada for 4 nations, everyone who knows me knows I've been consistent in this. I never truly believed that it was sustainable in his case. I mean, the Florida Panthers didn't put this guy on waivers because they thought he could be a number 1 goalie in the NHL. Okay? I mean, the Habs claimed them off waivers. I think he's a good goalie. I think he's a guy that's going to continue to be a goalie in the NHL for many more years. But I think his apex is more of a 1B, not a 1A, and maybe even a really, really good backup. I don't think he's a true 1, in my opinion.
Now, so look.
But I thought that before this year, to be fair.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell you what I thought when the Canadiens picked Samuel Montembeault from waivers. And some people are probably, going to be listening to us or watching us and saying, well, yeah, maybe not fair because Marty St. Louis was picked up off of waivers too, and so was Daniel Briere. Sure. Look, the exceptions of players being picked off of waivers and having great careers, and in Marty St. Louis' case, a Hall of Fame career, it happens, okay? But it's few and far between. It's very, very rare. It's a small number. When the Canadiens picked up Samuel Montembeault off waivers from the Florida Panthers, I saw him play his first 2 games. I said to myself, this guy's not an NHL goalie, right? I don't see it. This guy's not a. Now, I'm no goalie expert by any means. As a matter of fact, I'm no expert when it comes to anything by any means, except probably wearing diapers. But I'll say this. he got better every year.
For sure.
And he showed me something that I didn't think he had. And I don't want to talk as if his career is over, because I believe that he can bounce back. Now, do I believe he can bounce back and be a goalie that starts 62 and help a team get into the playoffs? I don't think he can get back to that level. And I hope I'm wrong, because he proved me wrong so many years. I think, one of the things I see is that I don't think there was a lot of pressure last year. And I think at the time where maybe you could start to feel pressure was already very late in the season. How many people thought the Canadiens were going to make the playoffs last year? Like, I really, truly believe that the only people that said the Canadiens were going to make the playoffs last year, who are not within the organization, were people that wanted to be the minority. This way, if they make it, they say, I had them in the playoffs, right? And so I think there was no pressure. And then all of a sudden, they make it. They lose in the first round to Washington. Then in the offseason, everyone's saying, hey, next year they're going to be better because they're going to have Demidov for a full season. Oh, look, they just pulled off that trade for Zach Bolduc. Oh, look, they just pulled off that trade for Noah Dobson. Oh, look, the young core is going to be 1 year older. Look, the coaching staff's going to have 1 year more experience. You get into the preseason, already there's this expectations, and we already know that playing for the Montreal Canadiens comes with a lot of pressure. Imagine being the captain or the goalie, in his case, of the Montreal Canadiens. And I think, and only he knows, I think the pressure got to him.
That's very possible. I mean, I love the way you set that up too, because expectations change a lot, especially in that market. And, by the way, I should call myself out, because you had me on early in the year and you asked me for my prediction on the year. I thought the Canadiens would again be a bubble team that would just make it in. And so far, they've proven me wrong. They've been better than that. So I need to acknowledge, if we're going to play the game of predictions, that I've been off, that I undersold the Canadiens a bit this year. I thought their youth would bite them more often than it has. Although in the recent California trip, that defensive structure is exactly why I thought there would be more lows this year than there have been. But I love how they bounced back against Toronto and Ottawa back-to-back. They were way better defensively. I was at the Toronto-Montreal game. I went with my son, sat in the stands. My son's a big Habs fan, and I thought structurally, I know the Leafs are going through, they're not the normal Leafs, but I thought the Canadiens gave up very little in front of Dobas. Really impressive, given what we saw in California, because that was the fact they went 1-1-1 in California in itself is a miracle, given how they played defensively.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, after that trip, I said that you don't have playoff success if you continue to play that way. And they obviously recognized it and bottled down and tightened up over the last couple of days and last couple of games, which is promising. But, speaking of young players, I want to get to a couple of them. Slafkovsky has put himself in the Montreal Canadiens history books. If we can bring up, look this up, the courtesy of RDS, by the way. So most points for a Montreal Canadiens player under 22 years of age. We know that Lafleur was on the bench for the first 3 seasons in the National Hockey League, so that would have been tough, but he had 119. Lane Hutson, who broke into the National Hockey League at age 20, 126. Mario Tremblay, 136. Galchenyuk, 136.
That was surprised. I'm surprised Galchenyuk is on there. Actually.
Yeah, but he broke into the National Hockey League as an 18-year-old, if memory serves me well, right? Richer, 154. Henri Richard, 163. Juraj Slafkovsky, who broke into the National Hockey League as an 18-year-old, 164. Your thoughts on this? Now, look, 18, 19, 20, 20. Like, if you take a look at 4 years, it's probably averaging about 41 points a year. That doesn't look a lot, but he's really coming, right? He's progressing every year.
I mean, I was in Milan, and in fact, I was sitting beside Arpon Basu every day for the men's Olympic tournament for the Athletic. And of course, every time Slafkovsky scored, I looked at Arpon and said, "You're going to have to write about him again, Arpon." I thought Milan was an incredible moment as far as the Olympic stage and the whole world watching. Habs fans weren't surprised, but when you're at the Olympics, there are people watching that don't either don't usually watch hockey, or B, don't necessarily pay attention to certain players from different markets. And Slafkovsky, I got to vote on the All-Stars for the Olympics, and Slafkovsky was one of my 3-4s that I put down for the Olympic All-Star. And I don't think there's a moment too big for him. And I'm going to say this again, and I've said this before on your show, and I know people think I'm out of my mind when I say this. But again, the way he played in the Olympics, the way he carries the puck up the middle, I'm just going to say, Tony, I'm just going to say again that I'm not sure he doesn't end up being a better center than a winger in his NHL career. We'll see.
Wow.
I know that I think he himself doesn't think that. In fact, I think someone asked him once about how bad he was in the faceoff circle, but he has the way that he controls the center of the ice as a winger is really interesting to me. And I hate to throw this name out, but when I see his strength continue to develop and the way that he can push checkers off him with his strength that continues to get bigger and bigger, boy, I see a little Peter Forsberg in him. I got to tell you, wow. Again, different positions. And it may be that Slafkovsky stays on the wing the rest of his career, but the power that he has in his core strength, which is just going to continue to get bigger and better, this is a really special player here. And, that's a pretty high comparison. And I, it's kind of dumb to do comparisons like that, but I'm just saying he's not even close to his ceiling yet, in my mind.
Well, listen, we've heard all kinds of comparisons, right? Like I think Jaromir Jagr said that Slafkovsky kind of reminds him of him. So once you hear Jagr, I mean, you could definitely hear Forsberg. It's okay, right? Type of thing. But when Slafkovsky was drafted in the National Hockey League, he was asked what his comparable is, and he said he thought his comparable would be Rantanen. And
which again, by the way, I mean,
it's a great player. And I'm going to I see Rantanen. I can understand you seeing Forsberg. I can understand some people seeing Jagr. By no means are any of us saying that he's going to end up being this player or as good as this player or better than this player. The reason why I see Rantanen is winger, left-handed shot, can play both wings, 6'4", 225 pounds. One's a Slovak, one's a Finn. They both played in Finland. They both played for TPS Turku. And that's about it, type of thing, right? So anyway, we'll see what happens. But look, that's pretty amazing company that he's in. There's no doubt about it. It's pretty amazing company. Now, there's another young Montreal Canadiens player who has put himself in NHL history, and it seems like every 3 weeks, this guy equals or breaks a team or league record. Lane Hutson. Look at this. This is incredible. Most assists by a defenseman through 150 games played. The former record holder was Sergei Zubov, 115 points. 115 assists, in his first 150 NHL games. Lane Hutson topped that. And now he's got even more than that, by the way, because this was 116 the other night, and he was able to add more points. So,
and if you're gonna really, because sometimes it's hard from era to era, dead puck era. Sergei Zubov was unbelievable, as everyone knows, by the way.
Yeah.
But his contemporaries on that list, I mean, you got a Makar, you got a Hughes. Those are guys from the here and now that are, I mean, Makar and Hughes are the 1-2 in the world. So that is tremendous company for Lane Hutson. And again, much like Slafkovsky, I still see so much growth there for him. And my son's a defenseman, so him and I spent a lot of the night paying close attention to him and to Caden Gooley for different reasons. My son's more of a defensive defenseman, so he has a Gooley jersey. So he was really interested to see where on the ice Gooley tries to, because you don't always see it on TV, especially with him, because he doesn't have the puck as much. He wanted to know how he anticipated where he went. So that was exciting. But then, of course, a lot of what Hutson does with the puck when we were about 20 rows up, it's even more crazy. Like I said this the other day, we live in the press box, Tony. Those of us in the media, we have a privileged it's a privileged living that we have. But it's incumbent, I think, on media people at least once a year to buy a ticket and go down and watch it from down there a bit, because it's a whole different vantage point. And watching Lane Hutson from 20 rows up and seeing how he ducks in and out of traffic and never looks down, his head is up the entire time. It is absolutely mesmerizing the other night against Toronto.
Okay. And By the way, Lane Hutson has since had an assist, so it's 117 assists in his first 150 NHL games. He's actually played 148, so that and 117 could probably go to 120 by the time the weekend is over. The Canadiens will host the San Jose Sharks on Saturday night. They've already announced that it's Jacob Fowler that's going to get the start in goal.
Which is the right call.
Yeah, okay, we'll discuss that in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, you talked about Kaiden Guhle. His name came up on Friday or on Saturday or Sunday. I don't know when people started talking about the Leafs and the Canadiens and Matthew Knies, but on Friday last week was NHL trade deadline, of course. And Kent Hughes came out and told members of the media, he's a pretty transparent guy, Kent. He told members of the media, I was working on a trade and it took up a lot of my time. We weren't able to get it done. So then, speculation fueled over the weekend and throughout the entire week. And I believe it's Nick Kypreos who came out first and said, there's belief that the talk what the Canadiens were having was with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there's belief that maybe Matthew Knies, his name, was in that deal. I know Darren Dreger and Chris Johnston weighed in on it last night on TSN. I think Chris Johnston, your colleague also at The Athletic, said something to the effect of, the Leafs and Canadiens may be talking, and Matthew Knies, those are probably two separate issues. What have you heard? Because I know you've heard something.
Yeah. Here's what I believe is my sense of what is accurate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That I do believe that Montreal phoned Toronto on Matthew Knies, but that it never got to a level of being close or serious. I think that if you could unpack everything Kent Hughes did in the days leading up to the trade deadline, would not surprise me to find out that there were a lot of Matthew Knies-like players that he went to on teams across the league trying to find out, would you entertain this? So, yes, I believe he talked to Toronto about Knies, but I don't think the Leafs were ready to go down that path, and so they left it at that. So I don't think it got close. But which is why I believe that when Kent Hughes told the Montreal media after the deadline ended that he was close to something bigger, I don't think it was that. I think it's with another team on another player. I don't know who it is. And I think the reason why Montreal and this other team are trying so hard to keep that secret is I think they want to revisit it in the offseason. So it would not serve anyone any good to have that leak at this point, because I think those two teams may rekindle their conversation.
Why do you think Kent let it out to begin with?
Well, it could have been the emotion of the moment. It might be because he wants his fan base to know that just because they didn't make a trade doesn't mean they weren't trying. I mean, I don't know why. I haven't talked to Ken about it. I'm going to see him at the GM meetings next week in Florida.
Okay.
But there could be a number of different reasons. Sometimes these GMs, if you look at their post-deadline availabilities, there's often a lot of truth serum that comes out. It's when GMs are at their most raw because they've been through the gamut in those 72 hours leading to the deadline, and now they're facing the camera. Brad Treliving's availability was pretty unreal with the Toronto media. He was so downcast, and you could tell he was just living all the punches of a season gone wrong.
And
but
he assumed all responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
The construction of the team, he takes responsibility for it. Speaking of teams, the Edmonton Oilers, they lost, and they lost big to the Dallas Stars yesterday. Tristan Jarry, I want to bring up his stats. Since January,
I have to look?
Since January 20th, 10 games, 41 goals against, 826 save percentage. That's 71st out of 71. A -9 goals saved above expected. That's last out of 71. A goals against average of 5.09. 7 games giving up 4+ goals against. Feel terribly for him because 14 months ago or whatever it was, I mean, he was sent down, and you know what? Why did Edmonton think he would be the solution?
So you said earlier you're not a goalie expert. I'm not either. So when it comes to goalie trades and goalie observations, I have a circle of ex-goalies that I really trust, and I will tell you that when Edmonton made that trade, I went to a bunch of them, and they loved it for the Oilers. For
Really?
full transparency, they thought that Tristan Jarry's ceiling was higher than Stuart Skinner.
Wow.
And that, yes, it was fraught with risk, but if the ceiling hit, that Jarry was actually the more talented goalie of the two, which surprised me too. I mean, but it explains why they always did this to begin with.
But full transparency, I thought it was almost over. I thought it was over for Skinner in Edmonton too. Like I thought he had to move on because I mean he was having members of the media basically ask him to evaluate his own play, which was not good. It was tough. It was tough.
But two things can be true. I mean, it was probably right for Skinner to need a new start, which doesn't mean that you made it in the right trade. So, but what has happened instead is that the worst case scenario has played out in the Tristan Jarry trade. Is that never mind the ceiling, he's below his floor. I mean, he looks like he lacks confidence. He has not given them the spark or the the backbone that they've needed in net. I have to say this too because I think it's important when you're piling on a goalie to mention other components. The Oilers have not been good defensively all year. They it's the reason why they traded for Connor Murphy, but who, by the way, the Montreal Canadiens really liked. Montreal was in on Connor Murphy, but Edmonton beat them to him.
I love him. I couldn't understand why they didn't.
They tried. The Habs were in there. Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I'm not letting Tristan Jarry off the hook at all here because I mean he's not been good at all. But the Oilers aren't playing the kind of hockey defensively either that allows you to go back to a cup final. So. Listen, it's going to be fascinating. I think Stan Bowman, in terms of deadline week itself, I like the pieces he picked up in Dickinson and Murphy. But if they don't get going and if they lose out in the first round after being a Stanley Cup finalist 2 years in a row, I wrote this week in The Athletic about all these big names to keep an eye on, whether it's this offseason or next offseason, like Brady Tkachuk, like Austin Matthews, etc. Connor McDavid, like, I think people misunderstood when he signed a 2-year extension that it definitely meant he was in Edmonton through 28. Hold on for a second here. That's not what he was saying when he signed a 2-year extension. At the very least, in the summer of 27, for sure the plan is for McDavid and his agent Judd Moldaver to huddle with Oilers management and say, all right, are we still a contender or are we still going for cups here? And if not, then I think the summer of 27 is when you start thinking about the exit, not the summer of 28, because I think McDavid would want the Oilers to get something in return and not just have him walk out the door in 28 for free. What I'm saying, though, is if they get smoked in the first round, let's say, in a short series, I mean, I don't know. Like how do you think the best player in the world is going to feel? I still think he gives them another year, but Edmonton's the team to keep an eye on here, honestly.
Yeah. All right. In ending, and so appreciate your time, Pierre. Speaking of that game between Edmonton and Dallas, there's a Dallas player that really riled up the Edmonton Oilers yesterday. And if we can bring up, there was a screenshot of Ray Ferraro, I think, in between the benches.
Yeah.
And someone asked Ray Ferraro, "Hey Ray, what's this guy chirping about?" I don't know if we have the picture here, but if we don't, we'll try and get it. But if we don't, let me see here. Okay.
So he fought McDavid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're talking about him?
Yeah, Justin Erskovian. Yeah.
Yeah. He fought McDavid.
Yeah.
And then he fought
Trent Frederick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he went up and spoke. He was yelling something at McDavid, right? And I think Ray Ferraro was caught in the middle of it.
Yeah, Ray Ferraro was caught in the middle of it. I've since sent the picture over. I think we should bring it up any second now. But it's pretty funny. For those who actually saw the video, he's like pointing out a couple of guys on the Edmonton bench. And there you have it. Hey, Ray Ferraro, would love some context if you could provide, please. Ray responds, actually pretty good stuff from the rookie. Didn't back down and had half the Oiler bench listing. And the reason why I bring it up, to tell you the truth, Justin Erskovian is a great story. He's a Montreal kid. He's an Il Bizarre boy. He played, of course, in the States at the NCAA level. And last year was, the MVP of the American Hockey League, and signs a contract with the Dallas Stars, and has played everywhere up and down the Stars lineup, even up until the point where he's actually playing on the wing on the first line. And
they've got a couple injuries right now, so good for him. Yeah.
And you know what? He's chirping, and he's brought back like that pest player in the National Hockey League, something that Marchand obviously did so great, and Esa Tikkanen and Claude Lemieux and Darcy Tucker, and the list goes on and on. Found himself a niche, made himself a very useful player. It's a great story, I find. Really is.
It's awesome, and that was a great moment last night, although not for the Edmonton Oilers, but Dallas. I mean, by the way, I don't want to go on a rant right now because I know you're trying to get me off air, but the fact that it's looking like Dallas, Minnesota in the first round, like the playoff format is so dumb. It is so dumb. Last year, I covered Colorado, Dallas in the first round. Amazing series, 7-gamer, the Mikko Rantanen revenge tour. You could make the argument the best 3 teams in the NHL right now. The argument, I'm not saying you'll agree, are Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota. Obviously, Tampa and Carolina have a say in that, maybe Buffalo. But the fact that Dallas and Minnesota are likely playing in the first round and someone's going home, it's bad for hockey. Like, it makes no sense to me. We got to change the format.
Okay, and you know what? I totally agree with you, and I agree with Bill Guerin as well. I didn't agree with him when he didn't take Hutson and Caulfield to the Olympics, but I got to tell you what, you know what? Vindicated, because they won the gold medal. So you know what? Whatever I said about you, Bill, I have to take it back. I still think they would have won it with Cole and with Lane, but the fact of the matter is we'll never know if they would have, but we do know that they won it. So with the team that you have. So Bill Guerin, my regards, and I hope you can forget about everything I said. All right, Pierre, have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. All the best to you. Salut la visite. There you have it. Pierre LeBrun. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. And of course, it's brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset-light 3PL that's driven to be different from cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico. Coast-to-coast shipping in both Canada and the United States. Energy moves it all. They're fast, reliable, and powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. If you're a real partner in transportation, contact the team at sick@shipenergy.com and see how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. Also, it's hockey night at Playground. As if watching hockey wasn't thrilling enough, now every goal means more action on the felt. Before the puck drops, every poker table is randomly assigned the player for the Montreal team. And when your player scores, boom, Playground splash to the next pot with up to $200 in chips. Catch every game on Playground's big screens all around the room so you never miss a goal, a play, or a splash pot. Visit playground.ca/sickpodcast or click the link in the YouTube description to spin a virtual wheel for a chance to win up to $100 in free play. Also, take a look at that fridge behind me. That's Bittt Tibi, and it's packed with Bittt Tibi beer inside that fridge for big games. You want the best beers on your team, whether it's Bittt Tibi IPA with its bold flavor, Bittt Tibi Lager with its exceptional smoothness, or Bittt Tibi Ultra Lager, which is ultra light and ultra refreshing. They always have a place on your team. Bittt Tibi, brewed for special occasions. Please drink responsibly. We're going to talk Montreal Canadiens hockey with Stu Cowan, and Stu Cowan is brought to you in part by Au Noir. You know me. I'm all about confident style and making an impression. That's exactly what you get with Au Noir. Au Noir is every man's one-stop shop. Shirts, pants, polos, suits, or sport jackets. Everything is made for comfort with stretch and sophisticated details for the perfect fit. Whether you're going for a classic or a bold look, heading to the office, a night out, or cheering for your team, Au Noir has you covered, because Au Noir isn't just clothing, it's your attitude. Check them out today at aunoir.com. And trust me, once you go Au Noir, you never go back. Let's bring in Stu Cowan.
Stu Cowan, presented by Au Noir, quality clothing for the modern man.
Stu, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tony. How are you?
Extremely well, my man. It's good to see you. We have ourselves a ménage à trois. Well, 3 goalies are here, but some will say, no, it's no ménage à trois because one won't play much. I'd love to get your thoughts on the goaltending situation. The Canadiens confirmed that Jacob Dobeš gets the start tomorrow night versus the San Jose Sharks. Pierre LeBrun was just with me. He says it's the right decision. You say what?
I agree. I'm almost certain we're going to see Jacob Fowler on Sunday against Anaheim. Marty didn't say that today after practice, but it's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, I'm wondering if we've seen Sam Montembeault play his last game for the Canadiens, because, right from the start of the season, I heard you talking earlier with Pierre, Marty and management have done everything to try and not hand the number 1 job to Sam Montembeault, but have him keep it, right? Including the break they gave him before Christmas when he went down to Laval. Then he came back and he worked with the goalie coach and they started him again, but he just hasn't been able to do it. And the way Jacob Fowler played in Ottawa and the way Dobeš has played all season, battling and winning games, he's 11-1-2, I think, in his last 14 games. I just don't see how, unless one of those guys falters or, knock on wood, is injured. I just don't see Sam Montembeault getting back in the net.
All right. Okay. You know what? Martin Biron said to me a couple of days ago on my podcast in French, Le Sick Podcast, where he's one of my collaborators every Tuesday and every Thursday. He said that because Dobesh lost last week versus San Jose, he would actually give Dobesh the Ducks on the weekend. Obviously, the Canadiens disagree. It's probably a way of saying to Dobesh, you know what? You lost against them last week, but we'll give you a chance to get them back.
I think it's a case also of them saying, like, you're still sort of our number one guy here right now. We still got you. Sorry, there's something going on upstairs. We still got you as our number one guy, and we're going to give you a chance to keep that. And with the back-to-back, so I think like having Fowler play back-to-back games, I think might give the signal to Dobish that maybe he isn't the number one guy right now.
Were you surprised by the Fowler call-up?
Not really. It got to the point. I mean, as I said with Monto, his last two starts, he gave up 9 goals. He had an .847 save percentage. And as Marty said before the game in Ottawa, when he was asked about it, he said, calling up Fowler gives us the best chance to win. And that speaks volumes. I mean, they lost confidence that they could win with Sam Montembeault in goal. And, Fowler came in and look what he did. And they won the game. And you see the reaction. I know after the game, he was doing a post-game interview on Sportsnet. And you could see the players walking behind him out of the locker room, patting him on the back, and the big smile on Caden Goulet's face. The players love Sam Montembeault. It's hard not to love Sam Montembeault. He's a great guy.
Great guy.
He's really struggling. And the way Marty St. Louis spoke, you tell it hurt him personally to have to call up Fowler and not give him that start. And as Marty said, in the position he's in, you have to make difficult decisions that hurt people you really care about. And that was one of them. The players love Sam Montembeault. They care about Sam Montembeault. They also want to win. And they're not dumb. They realize that with Sam Montembeault in goal, their chances of winning weren't as good as they were going to be if they called up Jacob Fowler. And they were proven to be right with that.
And I've said this before, if you recall, late October, Dobish beats Buffalo, I think, on a Monday night. They go to Calgary on a Wednesday, Edmonton on a Thursday, Vancouver on the Saturday, and they had Seattle on the Tuesday. So a 4-game road trip out west. They give Dobish, after beating the Sabres on the Monday, they give him Calgary on the Wednesday. He wins that again. They put Montembeault on the Thursday in Edmonton. The Canadiens blow a 5-3 lead with 9 minutes left in the game. They end up losing the game with Montembeault. They come back with Dobish on the Saturday night. He beats the Canucks 4-3. They come back with Dobish on the Tuesday night. He beats the Kraken 4-3 in overtime. And 2 days later, they're back at the Bell Center to practice. They're playing the Ottawa Senators in Montreal on Saturday, November 1st. And 2 days before the game, Marty St. Louis is very much aware of all the goalie controversy talk, and some members of the media are upset because a certain sector of the media was upset because they said that the Canadiens disrespected Montembeault because based on the season he had last year, should have been their number one. They should have played him to start, the game in Calgary. He should have had most of the starts on that trip. And by the way, former Canadiens great goalie Jose Theodore was one of those who thought that Montembeault was disrespected at the time. And Marty comes out right away and he tries to downplay any kind of goalie controversy. Guys, it's Sam. Sam is my starting goalie on Saturday night. There's no goalie controversy. Don't ask me about it. It's Sam. And I think it was a couple of days later where Marty weighed in on the goalies again and said, ultimately, I don't believe in the 2 goalie system. I think there's going to be a goalie who's going to shoulder the load. And I anticipate that goalie to be Montembeault. So for it to get to this point, I would be willing to bet that on Friday night in Anaheim and those 2 shots from far, probably that loss and those goals that went in were probably the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, and for the 5th time this season, he got beaten on the first shot, right? 6 times if you count the goal that didn't count because of the offside call. And then he let in the first shot he saw in the 3rd period also. Not all his fault all the time, all those goals, but those are killers, right? I mean, you're down 1-0 and only one line's been on the ice. You haven't even had a line change yet. Or the 3rd period, you're down there, you're 3-2, now it's 4-2. I think those are the things that were killing him. I think it's, in Montembeault's defense, he's made a lot of big saves, but those bad goals and those ones from distance, to the point where I was wondering, the last game, is there something maybe wrong with his eyesight? Is he not seeing the puck properly?
Yeah.
Is he not seeing it until it gets close on him? I'm wondering stuff like that. And, as you said with Marty, I think one of the reasons that they really wanted Montembeault or preferred Montembeault to be the number one guy, when you watch Dobish, he's not technically great, right? He's not a technically sound goalie. I don't think goalie coaches are teaching the way he plays goalie how to play.
He's a fighter, he's a gamer, and he's athletic.
He's a fighter, he's a gamer, he's athletic, he battles, he's almost like a ball hockey goalie out there. He battles. That's why, despite not a great save percentage, he's won as much as he has. But I think long term, the Canadiens are concerned that they need a goalie who's maybe a little bit more technically sound. And Jacob Fowler, I mean, what a difference watching him in goal against Ottawa. He makes saves look easy. He moves across. He is a little bit, I know you had Stefan Waite on with you last night, and he was saying you remind him of Carey Price. And same with me. It sort of reminded me just how the puck hits him so often. And he makes a big save look easy. But then at the end of the game, he made some really big saves. I mean, spectacular saves. So I think moving forward, I think as I said, starting Dobish tomorrow, I think because they want him to still believe he's the number one and has a shot at the number one. But I think if he falters, the Canadiens won't hesitate to put Fowler in there more often and have him maybe become the number one goalie moving forward.
All right, okay. So we got that now. So you got Fowler playing on Sunday, and you said you wouldn't be surprised if Montembeault plays his last. I want to talk about Texier. We got no official word, but based on the lines today, Caulfield was practicing. He looked good. Looks like the flu bug is a thing of the past for him. He's back on the number one line with Suzuki and Slafkovsky. Once again, we'll find out what happens on the weekend, but it kind of looks like Texier is the odd man out again, correct? Your thoughts on him being that odd man out? Because I've liked him this season. Yeah, I've liked him a little more at home than I have on the road. But mind you, last game on the road was really, really good game for him. But some will argue that it actually was a home game after all because of all the Canadiens jerseys. That's another story for another day. But your thoughts on Texier being out of the lineup? I spoke with Anthony Martineau earlier this morning of TVA Sports, and he's like, they got to find the spot for Texier, man. He's good enough. He needs to be in the lineup.
What's interesting, it's like a home game. Fowler said he had never experienced anything like that playing a road game where it felt like a home game. He said it was kind of weird. But with Texier, so if he comes in, who's coming out, right? It's Bolduc or Gallagher, you have to think, right? Those are the two guys. And Marty St. Louis, I think, is very reluctant to make Brendan Gallagher a healthy scratch. An assistant captain on the team. After practice today, Marty spoke about how important Gallagher has been to this rebuild right from when it started as a veteran who accepted the situation, was a leader, a mentor to so many of these young guys on this team, a big part of the team. I know I spoke with Mike Matheson after practice today also, and he was talking about that line that Gallagher is on now with Danault and Anderson and how important those type of lines are going into the playoffs. I'm reading here my quotes here. Matheson saying just the fact that their identity is kind of an energy line and a checking line, those are the lines that really thrive in the playoffs and are able to generate a lot of momentum within the game, whether it be a sustained shift in the offensive zone or a big block or a big hit, all those things that just give a boost to a team, get the crowd into it, all those things that can give you momentum. And I think Marty has that line as his momentum line, and I think he's reluctant to break it up, and I think he's very reluctant to have Brendan Gallagher sit in the stands, at least at this point. Moving forward, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that changes. But right now, with 18 games left in the season, I don't think he's ready to do that. Bolduc is the other guy. It was 26 games or something he's gone now without a goal. Yeah. As a young guy, I think they're worried about maybe they've sat him out once. As a young guy, I think they're worried what it might do with his confidence to sit him out again. But I think at this point, if Texier does get back in the lineup, I think it's going to be Bolduc who's sitting out.
All right, okay. And I would think so. But Bolduc, I have to tell you, I've liked his effort as of late. I know he hasn't scored in the longest time. Yeah. I like his effort. I like his forecheck. He's going out. He's throwing his body around. I like his grit level. When they're defending and he's in the defensive zone, it's not easy for him, okay? It's kind of like he's – and I say this, I brought it up a couple of times, where the math is easy for a couple of players on the team in the defensive zone and they just get it. Like, for example, a Phil Danault, a Jake Evans, a Nick Suzuki, a Cole Caulfield, they do the math right away.
Brendan Gallagher.
They know that 2 + 2 is 4. I find that when Bolduc's in his defensive zone, he has to pull out the calculator to do the math. And listen, and some players end up getting it, Some, unfortunately, don't. The ones that don't never end up having a great career because it's a big part of their game that's missing. And it ends up making them a player that's probably going to be on the market because teams actually end up at one point say, okay, you know what? He's got faults in his game, but he's still young. And I think he can get it. I mean, take a look at the young player they gave up in Logan Mailloux, right? Logan Mailloux's first games with the Blues, he looked terrible. And in the last couple of weeks with the Blues, he's playing on their first pairing on defense, and everyone thinks he's great. And he's playing 22, 23, 24 minutes a game. So, you know.
Well, there's a reason why both teams were willing to give up on those young guys, right? They saw flaws in their games. That's, you know, the first round draft picks both, and both teams were willing to make a trade. And as you said, both of them are still sort of struggling to find their place in the NHL.
All right. Okay. So there's other things, you know, the whole, Gallagher. I spoke to Eric the other night, and you know, if we take a look at the chat, you know, a lot of people will tell you that, okay, maybe it's time for Gallagher to sit out. And I'm going to tell you that personally myself, I would sit Gallagher out on Sunday. I really would. You know, Sunday's going to be 2 games and 2 nights, but when they post the Boston Bruins on Tuesday, that's going to be 3 and 4. Yeah. And then when they go to Detroit on Thursday, that's going to be 4 and 6. The games versus Boston and Detroit are so much more important than the games versus San Jose and Anaheim, because those games versus Boston and Detroit are 4-point games. To have Brendan Gallagher be at his best versus the Bruins, and when Brendan is, he can definitely help the Canadiens. There's no doubt in my mind. I would rest them versus the Anaheim Ducks. So now you talked about Marty St. Louis saying difficult decisions are on the horizon. I would imagine this is one of those difficult decisions that he's been contemplating, thinking about, and hasn't gone through yet.
Yeah, and what you say there makes sense. I mean, I think it would help Gallagher also to not play as many back-to-backs or give him a break once in a while. And Marty's biggest skill as a coach is communicating, and the way how much he cares about his players. And I'm sure if it comes to that point, he's going to sit down with Brendan and explain to him, this is why I'm sitting you out. I think it's going to help the team. I think it's going to help you personally also moving forward. The little bit less workload on your body, have you more ready for the playoffs when we do get into the playoffs, because I think they will count on that line with him and Anderson and Dano in the playoffs. You talk about the trust in the defensive zone. Those are 3 guys Marty has trust in to put out there protecting the lead late in the game. You know, here's a quote from St. Louis today when he was asked about Gallagher. He said, I look at all the veterans that have gone through the rebuild with us. They've been a big part of why we are where we are. There's some veterans that didn't want to go through that. He's been a big part in that leadership role and helped our young guys to evolve. He's played hard. Gally's a pro, and I know his minutes have gone down, and I think that's just what happens when you have young players pushing and coming. It's just part of it. So Gallagher knows where he is in this team also. And what you mentioned before, Tony, makes sense as far as those back-to-backs. Maybe give him a break on those back-to-backs. Give him a game off, and it also gives a chance for somebody else to get back in the lineup.
You know, Stu, you talked about, and I'm going to get back to Montembeault for a second. You were talking about Gallagher just now, and I think we all agree on that. But, you know, you said something before, and I didn't tackle it. It was you said you think that Samuel Montembeault may have played his last game of the season, that his season is over, and maybe that Fowler is here for good. Well, guess what? You know, earlier today, the Canadiens made a trade, and they made a trade, of course. Look, we'll bring it up. They acquired goaltender Hunter Shepard and forward Jake Chiasson from the Ottawa Senators in return for forward Riley Kidney. And acquiring that goalie, Shepard has played 15 AHL games with Belleville. I'm reading this out now from the press release, posting a 6-7-2 record. The 30-year-old netminder has also posted a 2-3-1 record in 6 career NHL games with the Washington Capitals and Ottawa Senators. Chiasson, 22, has registered 1 assist in 20 games this season with Belleville. 6'2", 181-pound forward, also played 16 games in the ECHL. Anyway, by acquiring a goalie in Ottawa, they might too think that Samuel Montembeault's season is over.
That's what I think. And listening to Pierre speak earlier, and I agree with him. I've always felt that Sam Montembeault's a very good goalie, not a great goalie. He was very consistent the last 3 years. His save percentage were 903, 902, 901 on a team that wasn't great defensively. It's fallen apart for him this season for whatever reason. But like Pierre said, I think he can bounce back from this. I think he's having a bad year for whatever reasons. You guys talked about maybe it was too much in the offseason with advertising and stuff like that. Maybe it was the pressure. Whatever it was, he's had a really bad season. But he's 29 years old. He's got a salary cap hit of only $3.1 million with one more season left on that contract, and you're talking about the goaltending problems that they've had in Edmonton and elsewhere in the league, I still think Sam Montembeault has some value on the trade market moving forward. And if the Canadiens are able to move him during the offseason, you have Dobish and Fowler next year with a combined salary cap hit of just over 1.8 million, which frees up a lot of money for Kent Hughes to do some other stuff that he probably wants to do during the offseason. So for Montembeault, I mean, you can't not like Sam Montembeault. A woman I went to high school with, her son has Down syndrome, and I've written about it a couple of times, and how Montembeault's never refused an autograph for this kid, never refused a photo for this kid. He's just a good guy, and it's tough to see bad things happening to good people, but it's pro sports, right? And you got to win. And he hasn't played well this season. Jacob Fowler has played really well in Laval. Looks like he's ready to be in the NHL regularly now. Dobish, as we talked before, is such a battler. And I think it's really cool the way, player development and drafting were the two biggest problems before in the previous regime with Marc Bergevin, right? Now you look at the way they've drafted and the way they've developed players. And even with Jacob Fowler, they called him up earlier this season when Dobish and Montembeault were both struggling. He got in 10 games and he looked good. And as Kent Hughes said afterwards, he said the way he was able to handle things mentally impressed him as much, if not more, as to how he was playing on the ice. So I think when they saw that, they realized, okay, this kid's ready for the spotlight in Montreal. They sent him back to Laval. After they fired goalie coach Eric Raymond, Jeff Gorton was saying that they wanted Fowler to play as many games as possible. That was the most important, and practices as possible. And he did that in Laval. And before they called him up, in his last 8 games with Laval, Fowler had a 7-0-1 record, 1.95 goals against average, .926 save percentage. I think you were talking earlier about it was a risk calling him up, and it was, but I don't think it was that big of a risk. I think the Canadiens were confident at this point. Okay, this kid has shown in Laval how good he is in net. He's shown us how strong he is mentally. Now he can handle the pressure playing in Montreal, and now's the time.
All right. So we'll touch on that. We'll get to that in just a second. Insta Customs, Montreal's highest rated print shop with a 4.9 star Google rating and over 3,000 reviews. Order today, printed today, picked or shipped today. Custom t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Fast, professional, and done right. Visit instacustoms.com or stop by their downtown location anytime you want. Also, if you want to get in on the action with the Canadiens to host the San Jose Sharks on Saturday, Stu, and hosting the Anaheim Ducks on Sunday, go all the way with Betway. Get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Stu, that's not the only news for the Canadiens today. They actually sent out a press release earlier today talking about the signing of this guy, 2-year entry-level contract for Luke Mittelstadt. The 23-year-old led all Gophers defensemen this season with 21 points. We'll get into details of the contract as well. Look at this. The 2-year entry-level contract, 2026 next year and 27, and 2027-28 the year after with Luke Mittelstadt. I'm reading off the press release. He also signed a 1-year, one-way AHL contract and will join the Laval Rocket for the remainder of the season, all right? He appeared in 36 games with the University of Minnesota Gophers in the NCAA this season. The 23-year-old blue liner produced 21 points, 2 goals, and 19 assists. He led all Gophers defensemen in goals, assists, and points, in addition to setting a career high in assists. Mittelstadt is one of 3 players to serve as team captain this season and concluded his NCAA career with an 80-point haul, 11 goals and 69 assists in 152 games with the University of Minnesota. In ending, Stu, there was a player who scored his 20th goal of the season the other day, and he had a big smile on his face, and I think you had a chance to catch up with Oliver Kapanen, who cashed in a $250,000 bonus, huh?
He did. $250,000 bonus for 20 goals. And I got him a loan after practice today, and I said, not a bad little bonus you got there, right? And his face just lit up. And it's sort of funny because he said he had forgotten that he had that clause in his contract. It's been a little while since he signed the contract, and he said his agent had told him everything he had at the time, but it slipped his mind. And then when he got to around 15 goals, his dad mentioned to him, you got that bonus clause, right, for 20 goals? And then he started thinking about it right then, and in the back of his mind that, $250,000 for 20 goals. He said his exact quote when I said, I knew it when I signed here, and my agent told me everything. and that was in the contract, but I forgot about it. We talked about it about a month ago, and here we are. So I asked him, I said, anything special you're going to do with that $250,000, the extra money in your pocket? He said, I have a good idea about that, but I'll just stay quiet about it. Maybe you'll hear about it later. Something nice. So 20 goals, $250,000, and boy, what a story he's been, right? With so much focus on Lane Hutson and Fowler and everybody else. The long search for that second line center, and they looks like they maybe had him all along, right?
And you know what? These guys work so hard and they sacrifice so much to get to that point, and so do their families.
Yeah.
And at the end, listen, you can say all you want. I mean, they're the top 700 in the world at what they do. And if he wants to buy himself a little gift or even a bigger gift, by all means, I mean, he deserves it. But the fact that he didn't go into the season already knowing I have a $250,000 bonus if I hit 20 goals shows you that this guy's all about team more than he is about individual.
Oh, yeah, and last year he had no goals, and what was it? I can't remember how many games he played last year when they called him up, and then they sent him back, and we talked about developing players properly. That was obviously the right decision to send him back to Europe to play there. But, I mean, I watch him, and I watch him away from the puck, and, boy, he's got a lot of Nick Suzuki in him when it comes to defensive responsibility and just being smart and being able to read the play all over the ice. And to think you have a kid like that, a young kid like that, 20 goals as a rookie, solid defensively, takes pride in his defensive game. As Marty St. Louis has said very often this season, I can trust him when he's on the ice. And he says it allows, having him with Demidov allows Demidov to take some risks offensively that he might not be able to take, or Marty might not let him take if he had another centerman on the ice with him. So, Captain, what a story it's been. And like the way his face lit up with that big smile when I mentioned the bonus to him. It's tough seeing bad things happen to good people, which is what's going on with Sam Montembeault, but it's really nice to see good things happen to good people also. And here's a young kid who's worked his butt off. And as you said, going into the season, it's not like he had in the back of his mind, if I score 20 goals, I'm going to get $250,000. But he admitted once he got to 15, he was starting to think about it.
Amazing stuff. Stu, thanks so much. Enjoy the hockey this weekend, and I appreciate you doing this, man. Have a great weekend.
All right, Tony, you too.
All right, there you have it. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and hockeyinsideout.com for this Friday. Once again, all transparency, was recorded a little bit earlier on, and at the time of the recording, we don't quite know what happened with Austin Matthews, if there's a results of the MRI that have come out, and what the suspension would be for Ratko Gudas. But we do know that he had a telephone hearing, of course. So there you have it. The Canadiens signed Luke Mittelstadt. They also acquire an American Hockey League goalie, and that goes to show you that their plans are for Jacob Fowler to be here for quite some time. And if that tells you that, well, then it tells you that probably Sam Montembeault is probably in pretty big trouble in that regard. Thanks for watching, everyone. Special thanks to all of our sponsors. Special thanks to all of you watching and listening. For Shane Gaumont and the Cavaleros and Master Control, it's a sick podcast. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBie.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.